So, this is a movie buffs first. I don't have any gags or jokes or anything to make. I just want to dive straight into the movie because, holy fuck, it definitely was not what I expected. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
I know you're a guy who doesn't watch trailers, so that's probably the reason why. As a guy who watched the trailers, I knew kind of what to expect from the movie, what kind of movie it is. And yeah, like, there's nothing to make really fun of here, so...
Oh, no, not at all.
You want to get into the episode?
Let's go! Hello, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Movie Buffs. I'm your host, Mansoor.
And I'm Yerka. So today we're here to talk about Last Night in Soho.
Yes, we are.
This is like a movie made for me and Mans. For Mans, of course, he loves the horror genre. And
I'm the horror boy.
Yes, and Edgar Wright just makes movies that I personally love, like I previously mentioned.
As I've said last week, there is no such thing as a bad Edgar Wright movie.
Exactly. And that's so rare. Like, all filmmakers sometimes make a movie that, even their biggest fans sometimes hate or just simply don't like. But with Edgar Wright...
they have a very uncertain track record with like one or two bad movies. But in the case of Edgar Wright, he's very stable, with a couple spikes here and there, but constantly at a state of just good.
But with Edgar Wright, what you get is usually a typical kind of Edgar Wright movie.
Yes.
This right here is by no means an Edgar Wright movie.
At all, and I love it. I love it. Oh my god.
So, do you want to give your score?
9.5.
Ooh. So we do disagree a little bit. I'm giving this movie an 8.
Ah, okay. Very slight disagreement. Okay, I thought you were gonna hit me with a 6 or a 7 like you did.
No.
Blue.
So no, don't worry. So I'll get right into it. No time wasted. I really love this movie.
Oh yeah.
It was I will say the idea, the concept, the aesthetic of the 60s, how they visualize everything with the mirrors and stuff. Perfectly done.
Music.
Yes, the music was perfect, and
I mean that's the case with every Edgar Wright movie. The music is always on point. You've seen this even with his earliest works, with the Cornetto trilogy, even all the way up to Baby Driver, where it was just perfection.
Exactly.
Purest perfection you can get with the music. So,
and also something that's not easy to find is that all the performances, really when I say all, that I mean all the performances were good. Usually you find at least one or two actors when you're hey, these guys were not the best. But over here, really all the performances, Anya Taylor-Joy, of course, she was an amazing standout. But even Thomasin McKenzie, her performance...
McKenzie did a phenomenal job.
How she falls in love with this girl from the 60s, kind of idolizes her, but then kind of goes away and drifts away from the passion, kind of to despise her almost. It's so...
Not despise her, but fear her. Or fear the situation that she's in.
Yeah.
It's... What I love about this is an inverse Perfect Blue. And if you haven't seen that review, I highly suggest you watch it. And if you haven't seen the movie, watch the movie. But this movie is an inverse Perfect Blue, and that's what I love about it so much. It's... even down to the point of just, the hallucinations... Or the quote-unquote hallucinations, how it takes you back into the past, how it drags you through those scenes, through the mirroring, through everything. The visual style is phenomenal, the transitions, the editing, everything was just so well done.
On that point, I will very, very slightly disagree with you. Very slightly.
On which point exactly?
Just the visual stuff. So, a lot of the mirror shots and the shots where they kind of switch and are different, a lot of them were amazing. I was just watching, and it's the creativity that they do, and the variations that they do is amazing. And it's mind blowing. It really drags you in, and you've never seen anything like this really. So it was unique as well.
No, it's very unique. It's a unique concept, unique idea. And mind you, as I said, like it kind of has. What I found is that I feel like it takes a lot of inspiration, not a lot, but like some inspiration from Perfect Blue in the sense of how it takes that idea of like the male gaziness, or like the idea of like the toll of fame itself and everything, especially in the case of Anya Taylor-Joy's character and everything, and like how it affects the innocence of Thompson Mackenzie.
Yeah.
So like
I really loved, like, in those mirror shots, like you were saying, how, you know, the expressions of the two actresses was so different. You know, Thompson Mackenzie had this kind of like, she was in awe, and, you know, she was just, you know, really observing and just loved every moment of Anya Taylor-Joy and the 60s aesthetic and vibe. Whereas Anya Taylor-Joy really showed that like powerful female who kind of, you know, she wasn't the typical singer who would do anything just to get famous. She stood up to herself, and you could see that from the very first moment.
Yes, but then it all got broken down.
Yeah. Well, just back to the point that I wanted to make before, where I slightly disagree on the visual stuff. As I said, like, most of them are great, amazing, but some of them just felt that they put them in just for the sake of putting them in, and were kind of on the nose. And sometimes the visual effects just, it didn't look right. Like, the person in the mirror looked like super bright in a dark environment, which is kind of like,
I mean, this was very like experimental, but also you kind of have to give it to Edgar Wright, because this is his first horror film, or this is the first time with him dipping his toes into something that is not like him at all. So like, even with the minor mistakes, you can forgive them, and you can still give him props for pulling it off so well for like a first time horror movie.
So I will say the idea and the writing was very good, but that's when I want to get into this. Why it's an 8? It's an amazing movie that could be easily a 10. But like I don't disagree with your opinion, because really the concept and the story is fascinating, and the visual style is great, but by no means there's no kind of Edgar Wrightism in this film. It doesn't feel like an Edgar Wright movie at all. And in terms of it having this specific style, being unique horror and stuff, it was very predictable. Like, at no point I was on the edge of my seat, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Because I could predict essentially everything.
Did you predict the twist?
Yeah, easily. I knew, like, as soon as, you know, we've seen Anya Taylor-Joy, I was like, oh yeah, that's the granny. And okay, at first I did think the old guy was the, you know, the young guy who was with Anya Taylor-Joy. But as soon as there was Jack. So I did think that I did initially think that it was the old guy, but as soon as there was blood, I was like, yeah, but that wouldn't make sense, since I think Anya Taylor-Joy is the granny. Then that means the old guy must be dead. So
honestly, I didn't see that coming. I kind of predicted it, but my mind was in deniability. But then, like, every clue managed to lead up to it well enough that it kind of kept you in the dark, but hinted at it well enough. I mean, in my case personally.
Okay. Like, of course, you know, it's everyone's subjective.
Yeah,
so,
again, personal taste versus personal taste. Like, yeah.
But again, I wanted to get into this. I'm not sure how good of a of course, it's Edgar Wright's movie, so he's not going to give it to anyone else. He's the one who wrote it.
Not.
So, but in an ideal world, I think this was not a movie that was supposed to be directed by Edgar Wright. If a different director, let's say James Wan, who does a lot of horror and stuff, who, you know, he did Malignant.
James Wan has his James Wanisms. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
You need a good horror. Like, honestly, I think the best one for that would have been Robert Eggers, the guy who did The Lighthouse and the Witch. Like, he would have been perfect for this.
Just like, or even if you want to get even more kind of psychological with it and have even more clues, a David Fincher maybe.
David Fincher definitely, yeah. But why I say Robert Eggers is because, like, Robert Eggers is a very psychological horror movie kind of guy. Like, he steps into it and manages to create something, take something so simple and make it so complex and deep and surprising all at the same time. So I feel like Robert Eggers would have been a perfect fit, or even Ari Aster would have been actually a really good fit for this too. The guy who did the what's it called? Midsommar and Hereditary. Like, that would have been a really good fit too, actually. We apologize for all the interruptions. We've just been having some technical issues. My camera batteries have just been dying out on me. I think I need to update the one that I currently have. But otherwise, this should work well enough. So, as I was saying, I mean, I can completely understand what you're saying with how, in the helm of a different director, it would have been a much better made film with so much more potential. But that doesn't mean Edgar Wright didn't do a bad job by any means.
No, that's I want to get to that. So I just wanted to give a quick example with Malignant. Malignant was handled by James Wan. Not a great film, but it had a solid twist. And in the world of James Wan, it worked really well. And I think with what he was kind of given, even though I think like he might have came up with a story too. I'm not sure how that was, but it was you could feel James Wan from it, and it had this unique, and it worked. Like from the movie that it was,
it had its own James Wan-isms.
It
basically
just solidly lives up to the feeling of the film, if you know what I mean.
100%.
Whereas personally, for it's an amazing concept, amazing story, but it kind of that's the thing that it relies on. Imagine someone giving a amazing script to not a bad but like a good filmmaker, but not a great filmmaker.
Like like a good filmmaker, but not someone who really fits the slot of what you'd want out of the film itself.
Yes,
like I completely agree, but still, like with his given ability and what he managed to pull off, he did a really, really good job.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. It's a great film. Like I want to recommend this film to everyone. Like even though like for me personally, it wasn't the ideal thing and slightly predictable. For the first time that Edgar Wright does horror, it even isn't that much of a horror. It's his own thing. It's kind of in the middle of a thriller horror. It's cool. I don't know. It's Last Night in Soho.
Yeah, it's Last Night in Soho.
Yeah, it invented its own genre essentially.
Yeah, no, like thing is, what I love about this movie is that it managed to take something so rudimentary like the idea of the editing, cinematography, and gorgeous stylistic choices that Edgar Wright has, stripping it away from like the action comedy, dark comedy, and all that shit, and adding psychological horror elements into it.
But
which managed to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Which managed to like create this whole, not a new genre, but like this whole new subgenre-ish of like his own right and own coalition, basically. But anyways, you were saying?
It's not really the typical Edgar Wright cinematography and shots that, are in his action comedy movies.
He kind of had to tweak it a bit, but like the same vibe and flow are there though.
I personally didn't feel that, but the cinematography still was like good. Like everything that I'm saying is negative. It might feel like I'm sounding negative, but that's because I really love Edgar Wright. And from Edgar Wright,
you're just being critical and coming from a standpoint of like loving him, but recognizing that like horror is not his genre, but he did a good job with what he was given specifically.
Yeah,
like he did a really good job with what he was given. So.
He did an amazing. If this was any other filmmaker, this is like an amazing film. With Edgar Wright, it's just subjective for me. My expectations are like sky high with him, so that's I guess like why I'm saying. But it's just really nitpicks. None of these things are like man, like you could look at every other movie that we reviewed, like even Shang-Chi. Like you could say some things are like that just could have been, that just wasn't good. But with this one, things were good for me. Like everything was just. But not perfect. That's like the best
everything
way I could
was.
Explain it.
It's not an idea that anything was bad, but everything was good. But it had so much potential to be better.
Yes.
Like that's the point where you're coming from.
But
that's why for me, why I give it a 9.
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
What you were saying? No,
sorry,
you go ahead. No, just go ahead, man.
Okay, so that's just like the reason why I give it an 8 is I'm not sure like how exactly it could have been better, because it does everything, like I said, it does the right things, but great filmmakers can do the right things, turn them into something even better, be creative with it, and like I was saying before, someone like David Fincher, or like you were saying, these kind of directors, they add that little kind of spice that just make it into this amazing film.
I completely agree, but here's the thing. You know why I gave it a 9.5? Because for me, again, like, this could have been easily a 10 out of 10, but I agree with you on one point specifically. Like, even with forgiving him for the minor mistakes that he made for the first time and all that, like, I agree
I don't think
with
it's
you
mistakes.
on the point. No, not mistakes, but, like, the usual issues that people run into for first-time horror directing. Which he managed to finesse well enough, but like you could still tell that horror is not his forte.
Oh yeah.
So like put it in the hands of like Robert Eggers, put it in the hands of Ari Aster, put it in the hands of like these two, or like anyone else who does indie horror well enough, and like with the same base idea, same everything, this movie could have been phenomenal. This movie could have easily been a 10 out of 10. Like, that's the point I agree with you on.
And it still is really good, but it primarily carries itself on the premise and the plot and the idea of the kind of mirrors visually. Like, these things carry the whole experience.
Well, it's not only the concept, but like in the manner of how everything was executed. Like, in a lot of cases, I don't think the acting could have been better. I don't think the writing could have been better. I don't... Like, a lot of aspects were perfect as they were, but in the sense of, like, some ideas, they could have been flipped or done more subtly, or, like, done with someone who has more experience and is more seasoned in horror, and that would have just hit the spot. Like, that would have just hit the bullseye.
You know what was, like, one of my favorite parts? When Thomasin McKenzie... the transformation where she goes through when she's having the dream, and she really idolizes, Anya Taylor-Joy. Visually you could of course see that, and then she goes to buy, the same clothes, she designs the same clothes, she changes her hair, and then, we were saying, she sees what Anya Taylor-Joy is starting to become and what's lying before her, and she kind of wants to distance herself from that. She's having kind of these visions and stuff. And all that section was told in like 15 minutes. And I was like,
beautifully in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Like,
it was
visual
perfect.
Perspective.
That part was told perfectly, because I was like, well, that was quick. That was weird. Like, I feel like they should spend more time on it. But the more I was thinking, I was like, no, it was done so perfectly. It was done subtly, and the acting of Thomasin McKenzie sells it amazingly.
It's the perfect example of pacing and show don't tell both done right.
Yes,
to
it was
an nth degree, where like it just carries you through the story so flowingly, with no drag, no problems, nothing, and it just holds your attention and reels you in more into the movie and into the concept itself.
That was my favorite part of the film.
For me, I have a lot of things that I like really loved so much. But for me, one part that I like absolutely loved was the... Okay, so two scenes specifically. The one scene that actually like got me really, really, really into it and made me love it so much was when she was chasing her through the street. I kind of got like this, as I said, perfect blue vibe out of it. While she was like trying to chase her with like the hallucinations of all the men's past just like following her and everything, and then it just all snaps back into modern day London. That's the first thing. And then the second thing was the at the end when the reveal twist, and she's like trying to stab her down on the stairs, and it switches between the old lady and Anya Taylor-Joy singing. That was perfect.
That was done. That was cool.
Amazingly. Like, amazingly. But,
overall, like I'm saying, I really enjoyed this movie. And, look, writing-wise, I feel like Edgar Wright 100% should do more movies like this.
100%.
And look, he's gonna be more experienced, so why not direct it as well? And of course, it's Edgar Wright, so he will direct what he writes, unless it's Ant-Man, of course. Sadly, he didn't write that.
Oh well.
Look, man, Edgar Wright movie. We're all after seeing that, we're all happy. So, I'm really happy I got to see last night.
I'm really happy I got to see it too fully. And after watching it once, I just had so many thoughts. And the thing is, like, I feel like I'll hold more appreciation for the movie the more that I watch it. Yeah. So, like, even after watching it once, you can see, like, how many thoughts and how many ideas that I have on the movie and, like, how much I enjoyed it overall with just, like, one viewing. And mind you, one viewing, like, literally right before we started the podcast by, like, an hour. So I spent, like, an hour just marinating in it. But, yeah.
I'm super... I didn't watch, like, any, like, breakdowns and stuff, but I would love to watch if there's, like, any details that I missed, because I'm sure there might be...
I'm ready...
sort of like... Sort of like you were saying... sort of like, when you viewed, Perfect Blue multiple times and you could always see all the different Easter eggs and meanings. I'm sure
I did the... Yeah, no, 100%. I'm sure someone will do, like, some kind of psychological breakdown on it the same way that I did, like, a psychological breakdown.
But I really think that there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs in this one. I feel like there's something that we're missing. But it's, like, overall, like, it's a great movie. Big props up to... big props up to him for stepping out of his game, stepping out of his comfort zone. So that's, like, another thing that we have to mention.
No, but one aspect that I really loved, which was kind of a reverse twist, was the fact that, like, her mother, Thomasin McKenzie's mom in the movie, the one who's dead, who committed suicide, apparently she had a lot of mental health problems, and it was hinted at that she may have been schizophrenic. So the fact that all these dreams and sequences were playing out kind of played out like as if Thomasin McKenzie's character was schizophrenic, but in fact, like, it all flipped the script into being like, oh yeah, no, it's all true. Like, we don't, like, that, I love that, actually. Like, that was a really nice, like, just reverse on that trope of, like, oh, there's a killer, oh no, it's just you being schizophrenic. Yeah. Instead, it's like, oh, I'm schizophrenic, or everyone thinks I'm schizophrenic, but no, there's actually a killer. Like, it was a nice little twist.
Yeah.
And well done at that, too. But...
Well, I think that's last night in Soho.
That's last night in Soho. I mean, I expected this episode to be a little longer, but since we were both in, like, very much agreeable on everything, or 90% of the things that we talked about, it's one of the shorter episodes, but guys, again, I'm on my end specifically so sorry about the technical difficulties.
It happens.
So. But yeah, it's all right. But oh well. I mean, next time I'll be sure to have everything up and running smoothly as we usually do, or as we try to do. But thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to another episode next week. Hopefully, it will be Eternals. Fingers crossed.
Oh, okay. I'm happy if you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, no. I think I actually found a way to be able to watch the movie here. And I'm not talking about streaming. Like, I think there's a cinema close by that might be able to screen it, like, this coming week.
That's great, man.
So, yeah, I might be able to get to watch it. But,
and the holiday season's coming, so we'll be viewing the newest Home Alone movie, Home Sweet Home Alone.
Home Sweet Home Alone, and doing a compare-contrast between Home Sweet Home Alone and OG Home Alone. So... look forward to that as our Christmas special. Oh, hell yeah. That will be very good. I mean, we can both agree from now that original Home Alone will be, like, a gargantuan amount better.
I'm quiet. You'll see what I have to say.
We'll see about that. But anyways, guys, thank you again so much for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
See ya.